Hi, everyone. We are back for our second 90 Stories for 90 Years interview. And just as a reminder, we are celebrating 90 years of Fraternity and Sorority Life being on DePaul's campus. So we are interviewing faculty, staff, alumni, advisors about their experience with DePaul Fraternity and Sorority Life. So I'm really excited to be joined today with Gina. And so Gina, if we can just go ahead and kick it off with an introduction, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, what university you attended, your role here at DePaul, and your chapter membership.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me today, Natalie. And again, my name is Gina Nunez. I'm a double demon. Both of my degrees are in communication from DePaul. I'm a member of Gamma Phi Omega, and I currently serve as Assistant Dean of Students at DePaul.
So tell us why you decided to join your chapter and how it shaped your undergrad experience at DePaul.
Yeah, so I think I had always been interested in Greek life. I'd always been curious. But I think I ultimately decided to join Gamma Phi Omega at DePaul because I felt comfortable with and inspired by the women in the chapter. I recognized many of them as student leaders on campus, and I wanted to be able to contribute to the community in a meaningful way, and I think they definitely helped me to do that. I think it helped me shape my undergraduate experience by, of course, building my network, definitely increasing my confidence, and helping me to create and cultivate some of the best friendships that I still have today.
That's awesome. And I know you kind of mentioned you really saw, like leaders in the women that were already members of Gamma Phi Omega. And I think that's a big part of Fraternity and Sorority Life. I think the other part is, there's that like values and commitment piece. And so what is your favorite value or commitment of your organization and why?
Yeah, so one of our goals is community service, and Gamma Phi Omega's national philanthropy is the American Diabetes Association, and this was important to me not only because of the impact that diabetes has on the Latino community, but the personal effects on my own family. My mom was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I'm just so grateful for the efforts that GPHIO continually contributes to combating this disease.
Do you have any memories of any volunteer projects that you did as a chapter related to your philanthropic cause?
Yeah, we would regularly, every year we would, I remember driving to Indianapolis, we'd have to be up at the crack of dawn to, volunteer, whether that was, cheering on walkers, handing out drinks, cleaning up, setting up tents. And, at the time, I remember thinking I could have been sleeping on Saturday morning or it's freezing on a cold September, October early morning. But, those are some of the great memories that I still have and I'm very grateful for. And I know my mom is grateful for too.
That's awesome. Yeah. So how have you continued to stay active after graduation?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to serve for several years on the national board of directors for Gamma Phi Omega. I had the privilege of actually serving as national president. But most recently, I served as a staff advisor to Gamma Phi Omega's Kappa chapter at Lewis University before I came back to DePaul.
I did not know that you were president. That is really cool. So can you tell maybe a little bit more about that experience? Because I think that's a really big role to take on as an alumni member.
Yeah, it definitely was big. It proved to be, stressful and somewhat overwhelming at times, but I was very fortunate to have a very strong and supportive group of other directors who were also some DePaul alumni and from various other universities to support me in my role and who had brilliant ideas and just wanted to continue to push the organization forward. So it was a really wonderful experience. One of my goals at the time when I served as national president was, visiting each chapter and having a one-on-one conversation with chapter members and talking about their goals and how the national board would be able to better support them. So that was a really, really cool accomplishment experience, getting to, see firsthand how the women were engaging in their communities, on their campuses. So yes, I'm very, very thankful for that. I consider it an honor to be able to have served as president.
That's really cool. And what a unique way to continue your leadership in the organization even after graduation.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of lucky too. I was relatively young-ish when I took on the position, so it was quite the undertaking. But I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity.
So you mentioned this in the beginning, but you are a double demon, and so you have seen a lot at DePaul. And so, how have you seen the FSL community evolve?
I love seeing just how diverse and inclusive the organizations are, how they continue to grow and expand. I love seeing how creative students are with their programming, just how well they've adapted to the always changing landscape of higher education on a college campus, as well as a most unusual year during a pandemic. So kudos to our students who have done a really great job with that.
Yeah, I've also just been so impressed with how they've pivoted this year and continued with intake and recruitment and all their programming as well, because I think both of us know FSL is very rooted in history and tradition, and we don't sometimes veer far from that. And so I think this really pushed chapters and national organizations to really think differently and how could we be more accessible to students, and especially at DePaul with so many students being commuter students. I think this virtual environment has really shifted people's thinking about how can we do more things in a virtual space. So, if there are members that travel 30, 40 minutes to campus for a 1-hour program, I think it's been really cool to see, how much they've learned and what they're going to continue to change even, when we kind of go back to that new normal.
Yeah, definitely.
So what is your favorite event or memory with the DePaul FSL community?
I'm really grateful that I have so many fun memories to choose from during my time with the FSL community at DePaul. But I think my favorite memory is, so I had to attend an FSL leadership retreat amongst all the councils. And at the time, I was president of the Multicultural Greek Council, but I was also an RA. And there was another, he was an IFC executive board member who was also an RA. And it just so happened that we had mandatory RA training at the same week or same weekend that we had a mandatory leadership retreat for FSL. And the retreat was in Wisconsin, and I remember Natalie at the time, the woman who was in your position, was adamant that we attended the retreat as soon as our RA training was done on Friday. And I remember being mildly inconvenienced and annoyed at the time. But I am so thankful that she insisted and she stuck to that, that it was mandatory, because the IFC member and I made our own separate road trip up there, and we sang our hearts out on the way up to Wisconsin. And I just remember laughing so much that weekend when we finally did join up with everybody else. There were so many great activities and team builders, and they really brought us together. We were able to understand where where they were coming from, different perspectives, and it really laid the foundation for us to create some really, really amazing connections. And it was tough to decide a favorite, but I think that one was definitely one of the highlights of my time with FSL.
Yeah, I feel like the FSL retreat, everyone just loves it. I think as you said, there are a lot of people are like, oh, I have to go to this. Why do I have to spend a weekend away from the city? Yeah. But I think once they get there, I think they really enjoy it, because I think it's a time away from the city. It's time away from all the busyness, and to really focus on building relationships with all the other councils that they don't get to typically interact with, because they may be just so consumed, with their own chapter or council. And it's they finally get that space, to interact with some new FSL members.
Yeah, and I think we just appreciated that. I think on the way up there, we were, there may have been some eye rolls or, muttering under the breath, but I really am. I'm so appreciative of the time that went into planning that, right? The opportunity that we were able to go up to Wisconsin and really just enjoy our time together and had taken advantage of planning and, just really building on something that was really special and important.
So I think, we kind of we're still in the midst of, recruitment and intake. So what is your best advice for someone interested in joining FSL at DePaul?
That's so exciting. Such an exciting time. I would say to, do your research on your options and what, if you're looking at an organization, look at what it stands for and spend some time getting to know the members of the organizations. You're going to be tied to them for the rest of your life. So I think it's worth it to do a little research on the investment that you're going to be making, and finding an organization whose values just align with your own personal and professional goals and values.
Yeah, and I think you said this earlier, but there's so many chapters at DePaul, and so take that time to really find the chapter that fits you, and do that research, because it can be overwhelming first looking at like 28 organizations and be like, where do I even begin? But I think really taking the time to learn about what each council is about and then all the chapters that are governed by each of those councils.
Yeah, I remember trying to think back about the kind of research that I did. And I remember going to a couple of different informationals, and those were very helpful. But I remember thinking, back in my day, and this was quite a long time ago, chapter websites, a lot of chapters didn't have websites, or they were not updated, or there just wasn't plentiful information out there. But now everyone has
everything,
and all these really great ways to be connected. So take advantage of it. Find that information and put yourself out there. Get to meet great people.
So I know you shared your favorite FSL memory. So in closing, what was your favorite memory in your organization?
This was also a really tough question because I've had so many great memories. But I'm going to say the road trips. I loved traveling with my sisters to go to our annual national conference or to our leadership retreats, or even just for weekend trips to visit other sisters at other universities. I miss that so much, and I'm really so thankful that we manage of our time together when, we were undergrads, and, now we're all busy adulting. We don't necessarily have the time or the freedom to do as much of that. So I think those are some of the most fun and adventurous memories that I have.
Yeah, it's so fun to think back about all the different random get-togethers you did with your sisters. I mean, I'm even thinking back of just I lived in a sorority house, and it was it was a great time. And I was I will never have that experience again, to be able to live in a very close proximity to all my best friends. And I think, those road trips are just those random outings that you got to do just because you were all in the Chicagoland area. And I think, I always tell the FSL students here, it's don't take it for granted, because you will never live next door to all your best friends again. I mean, unless somehow you plan that, but all your friends are gonna be all over the country.
It's so true. And I really miss that too. I lived on campus all 4 years, and my sorority sisters, my chapter sisters, I think also took advantage of that, whether that was coming to grab some snacks or take a nap in between classes, or, coming after class to watch, I don't even know, whatever show was popular on MTV at the time. But yeah, I really do miss that, just walking through the quad, or meeting up with someone in the pit and picking up some snacks and just chatting about, whatever was going on at the time. It was so easy, and, to take advantage of that. So I definitely do miss that.
Well, thank you again, Gina, for joining us. We really appreciate hearing your thoughts and about your experience. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Okay. Bye, everyone.